deep in the heart of Orlando, Florida. It's the Best of the Outdoors podcast, brought to you by Texas Fish and Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your humble host, Dustin Warncke. So excited to be back with you on this special edition of the Best of the Outdoors podcast, and we're going to do something a little different on this show. Chester Moore needed a radio show and wasn't going to be able to be home on Friday of this show and do his normal radio show, so I'm going to have him hijack, I guess, if you want to say a better word, basically take over the Best of the Outdoors podcast for More Outdoors, which is his show on iHeartRadio and KLVI 560 AM, his radio station in Beaumont that he broadcasts at 6 p.m. Central Time every Friday evening. So I'm really excited about this time because basically Chester is interviewing me and is kind of doing a podcast takeover for this particular episode for his radio show. So More Outdoors, you can check out on KLVI, KLVI AM, and it's a fantastic show. You can listen to the podcast version of it on iHeartRadio app or any other podcast. I think is his podcast is syndicated all over the place like ours is. So anyway, really excited to have him as part of the show this time, and just to have him back on because I have so much fun when we do this. I laugh a lot in the show, and it's just an excellent time. So I hope you guys will enjoy Chester Moore from More Outdoors and our editor-in-chief at Texas Fish and Game taking over the Best of the Outdoors podcast for this special episode. Here we go.
Welcome to More Outdoors on News Talk 560 KLVI. This is the wildlife journalist Chester Moore. And man, do we ever have a special guest tonight? We got the legendary. We got the podcaster himself. We've got the wildlife renaissance man, the hunting and fishing industry renaissance man, hunting and fishing, how to get in the industry instructor, Dustin Warncke.
Hi.
Hey, that's a heck of an intro, huh?
Thank you.
It's $100 for that intro.
I'm about to say I'm a little humbled, there. So,
nah, it's great. I've been on doing stuff with Dustin through Texas Fish and Game, of course, and we're at the ICAST show. We've been at the ICAST show, and the ICAST is, I forget the actual acronym at this point, but it is basically the sport fishing trade show where anything, there's not really boats, there's kayaks here, anything outside of boats and motors, if it's in the fishing industry or loosely associated with the fishing industry, it's here, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, is anything fishing you can imagine for freshwater or saltwater, it's here. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, so you walk around, it's like a fisherman's playland, and it's pretty incredible to see the stuff, the stuff you see down the aisles. I mean, I remember as a kid going down to the little store called Alfred's down the road, and they had like a little section of little fishing section. They had they had little weights, and they had hooks and bobbers and a few little like H&H spinner lures, and that was exciting. Then you go to a real tackle store when I was a kid, and I was like, wow. And then you go to this thing.
Yes. And you're like, really, wow.
Yeah,
I mean, words cannot describe the amazement the first time you walk into a floor like this. So.
Exactly. So the reason that we're here, of course, is to do business. We both work with Texas Fish and Game Magazine. But the reason we're talking about this on the air tonight is every year since I've been going to ICAST, which is my 11th year here. I went once in the 90s and then skipped a lot of years and started coming every year in 2007. Is to bring you greatest and latest information from that sport fishing and tackle industry. And just looking overall at the show, it's really interesting just to give kind of an overview. I mean, last year, I keenly remember last year coming directly back from the show and talking about how there was just a ton of freshwater stuff. Like there was just really, it seemed even companies who were known for saltwater were having freshwater stuff all of a sudden. All of a sudden more,
Yeah, really. I mean, it's something that's really diverse. People are getting more into the diverse market, realizing that a lot of us, like in Texas, fish both fresh and saltwater, and so there's an offering for either, which is a really nice thing, to have for sure.
Yeah, I think that trend kind of continued this year, but the trend I'm glad for the consumer public is the fact everybody was bragging about decreased prices on stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, which is great because, I remember about 15 years ago, a guy contacted me through Gulf Coast Fisherman Magazine, who I was writing for pretty regularly at the time. And he says, I've got a really high-end fishing lure I'm going to send you. I want you to try out and test out. And this thing comes in like a test tube-looking thing, like it came out of some lab. Maybe in the Soviet Union where they were doing like illegal genetic engineering, back in the day. And I looked at this thing, and I'm like, it had like the retail price on it. It was like $99.95.
Wow.
And I'm going, A, I'm not throwing this thing out in the water. B, I should put it on eBay. But I didn't do that, of course, the eBay part. And I didn't actually fish the lure, I don't think. But that was the extreme end. But, you know, you're getting to the point where, you know, a topwater bait can be average.
Yes.
If you $12.95.
Yeah.
Would you think on a higher on ones that are the more known brands?
Right.
Yeah.
Like you've got your live targets, which are kind of the higher ones.
Yeah.
You know, coppers, fishing lures, and stuff. You've got all kinds of different. You know, there's a lot of different ones out there that cost.
Yeah. So that was a really cool thing. But was there anything in particular in terms of lures? Let's start with lures. Let's kind of categorize this. That you went, oh man, that's really awesome.
So Yozuri has this. They've got these things called knuckle baits, which are like spinner baits, but they have they're just really different.
Okay.
And they basically have new colors and sizes, and they have a crystal minnow, which they've brought from saltwater to freshwater, just to go along the same point we were talking about a minute ago. That they have new colors for it as well. So that kind of made me go, that's kind of cool. They're making the switch from, because for working with us, the Texas Fish and Game, they basically are saying, hey, this stuff, if you liked it as saltwater, you're going to like it that much more in freshwater.
And how crazy is that? Because check this out, same thought. So I'm at the Pure Fishing booth today. Pure Fishing, I guarantee you 99% of you out there wouldn't know that name because it's a business name, but I bet you do know Abu Garcia, Penn, Strin, Berkeley, Fenwick, Mitchell, Shakespeare, and several more, all part of a conglomerate called Pure Fishing. And they had in their Berkeley line of hard baits, I was really impressed. They have one called the Chapo. Okay, and it's kind of
an interesting name. The
Chapo. And it looked kind of like it has like a propeller type back end, a little bit softer plastic, not quite soft plastic, but softer than more pliable than the front, and kind of a giant propeller blade on it. And it was something that you would typically think of. When I saw that, I thought like muskie.
Right.
Pike.
Big fish, freshwater fish, right.
Yeah, I remember fishing with Ric Flair. Ric Flair. I wish it was Ric Flair. Woo! I'm such a wrestling fan. I go Ric Flair. Rick Clunn,
Rick Clunn.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's not a bad thing, though. Like, I mistake Ric Flair, Rick Clunn. Anyway, as I was out with Rick Clunn, he took out a bait one time when I was fishing the Neches River with him. And I'm like, what in God's green earth is that thing? And it had all these like soft plastic tentacle looking things coming off. It was propeller like. He goes, if you tell anybody about this, I'm gonna have to shoot you. He was trying something out, and I didn't know what it was. I forget what the brand or whatever it was, but it looked in that realm. But it was another crossover, something that came from the freshwater world, but this time going into the saltwater world.
Yes.
Sometimes you have the vice versa part of that. So that's kind of cool because especially here in Southeast Texas, where the bulk of our listeners are Southeast Texas, Southwest Louisiana, you got a lot of people that fish brackish water.
Right.
People who don't mind if a nice basset or a redfish.
Right, you get both. And that's a nice thing. The transition from saltwater to freshwater many times is a smaller bait and smaller hook size, or kind of a lighter hook size, lighter wire, and that's nice to know. There's more options really than ever before out there, and they continue to. The thing that encouraged me is things continue to improve and things continue to be of value to the consumer. And that's huge for us.
And speaking of that, if I wanted to take a freshwater lure, and I'm going to take it in saltwater, the first thing I'm going to have to do is remove the hooks.
Yes.
I'm going to have to put some different hooks on.
Point.
So we went by Mustad today, and they got these great hook kits that are basically for they're treble hook kits. And there's like a KVD, Kevin Van Dam pack for freshwater. And they got the little thing to work with the O-rings and to cut the braid and everything.
Plier is probably not the right word.
Yeah, I can't figure out the exact term. But basically a little tool, a multi-tool for like using, working with lures. But they had a saltwater pack. And they had kind of I think it was like, they had one like for kind of like the regular applications. And it was really cool because it's all in one little cool package that Mustad had. And I was really impressed with it because that's what you really need if you're that guy. And sometimes you're out there on the fly and you're like, nothing's working. Even like take redfish. I mean, redfish get a reputation for being kind of stupid because they are so aggressive at times. Yes. But you ask anybody who tournament redfishes in shallow water, they get really, really persnickety. They get out there and they're like, I'm not touching anything.
Right.
So you might go, man, you know what? I've got this secret thing in my stash here. That when I was at my Uncle Louie's house in Wisconsin, I caught, I caught a big muskie or whatever. So you take this thing out, but you try those hooks, and you're not going to fly. So you have a little thing to switch it out, and that's really important to be able to do that and have the right O-rings and everything like that. So I like the fact that it's being able to see this fresh to salt to fresh switchover, and also have the ability to have the accessories out there to make it happen on the fly.
Right, because, or think about if you have a hook that gets broken off or whatever the case may be, you may need that hook replacement kit so you don't have to buy the whole lure over again, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to have to buy the whole lure over today's economy, right?
No.
But that's really cool. You and I, two different companies. Joe Zuri, of course, is got just a stunning amount of like hard plastic baits.
Right.
It's really incredible to see all the stuff they got.
For both fresh and saltwater too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I look at a lot of stuff and go, man, that's freshwater. That should be in saltwater too. And there's usually something similar, but there's always different nuances. And if you go into different systems, like say you go from Panama City, Florida, over to Galveston, Texas. Mm-hmm. Some of the kinds of bait fish, different subspecies, have little nuances that are different. And sometimes I have to go to the freshwater side to find something that matches closer to the hatch. So you can make a mullet, and a mullet's kind of basic, but a mullet's the color of its back and sides are different in some bait systems, water clarity.
That's true.
That kind of stuff. And of course, I had somebody ask a good question: how does the fish know what the color of the back of the lure is? And when we come back on More Outdoors, we're going to find out the answer to that very question. Welcome back to More Outdoors on News Talk 560 KLVI. Here's my good friend, podcaster, motivational outdoor speaker, a guy who brokers exotic animals, all kinds of crazy stuff, salesman for Texas Fish and Game, Dustin Warncke, and we are in his hotel recording this program. His hotel, he doesn't own the hotel.
No,
but we're in his hotel room.
Not the Grand Hotel.
No, he's got his awesome setup here and everything, and it's really, really cool. And so we're excited to be at the ICAST show, which is the biggest sport fishing trade show on the planet, and it's got pretty much everything. But I asked an immortal question for those who have pondered philosophical things about the great outdoors and fishing. I remember listening to some gentlemen one time talk about how there was one particular topwater that had a green back, and the green back was the key to catching the speckled trout. The topwater, the problem was that lure, the back set almost totally out of the water. And I'm thinking, if the fish is coming under, what kind of a glimpse is he getting of the greenback? How does he know it isn't purple?
I didn't even think about that until you just mentioned that. I mean, it was kind of in the back of my head, but I didn't want to say like, oh yeah. Geez,
so are they hiring Mullet to jump over and give a report? I like that one. You know what I mean? What is happening here in the world? But sometimes there are nuances to baits and stuff like that. That are really interesting. You want to look at something that I saw. And this has been every year it builds, is kayak accessories.
Yes.
I was at Flambeau this morning, and they got these cool crates, and they almost look like those fancy like book storage crates. Mm-hmm. And they got layers in them, and they got enough holes in them, like if you take on a wave, it's not going to hold the water in, and they're really compact, and they're really well made, and that's just for carrying your tackle boxes and stuff out there.
Yeah. No, it's really cool, and the one thing I've also seen a bigger push on is inflatable kayaks. Did you notice that?
Yes, inflatable kayaks.
Inflatable kayaks are kind of the trend at this show for some reason, and I'm really thinking of getting one that's a flat, like a SUP board, like a stand-up paddle board, and putting a cooler on it and fishing with it that way. Because to me, the kayak and sitting down and getting up, I'm kind of a big guy. But to sit on top of a cooler on a kayak, or on a SUP board, it makes a lot of sense. They have hard SUP boards and soft, inflatable ones. And the cool thing, though, that all being said, is that they have, these are long and wide, which makes them a lot more stable.
Yeah, and I think for the entry-level person, we're not talking about the guy that's going to be paddling 10 miles on some kind of an epic kayak journey.
I should qualify my statement, yeah.
But those are out there. And do you know what the prices are, the general price range of those inflatables?
I think they're a little bit less than a hard, I don't know if you call it hard side kayak like you would a hard side cooler, but they're a little bit more affordable. But the thing I always wonder about with inflatables is how durable is it, because you don't want it to scratch against the rock and uninflate, but they're really made of durable material these days.
Yeah, and it might be something that you want to go fish out in the seagrass flats, not by the jetty.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
You know, that kind of thing.
That's smart angling right there.
Every once in a while, I come up with one.
Right.
But and the way kayaks have expanded. When I was a kid, I thought kayaks were for Inuits in Alaska. Because
I believe that's where they started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember seeing old movies with Charles Bronson up there or
Right.
something, and and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool way to develop to be able to navigate all those ice and all that cool stuff. And then you start seeing fishermen in them, and you're like, that's kind of weird. But now it's become such a huge thing, and really it's about the price and access because a lot of people can't afford boats. I mean, we got $100,000 bass boats out there, and the average price is, I don't know what the actual average is, but I'm looking at bass boats. It got to be a plus 40 plus.
Well, Ranger has one that's over 100 as far as bass boats. But I mean, I saw a Skeeter Bay boat that was over 100 the other day, and I was just like, how does one man, simply afford that? Kayaking, and there's another company called Roundabout Watercraft that works with us in the advertising world, and Ultra Skiff. They both make round boats.
Yeah.
And I think that is really interesting because it's like a kayak, but the stability, you wouldn't think it would be that stable. It's really stable.
Yeah.
I have a friend that owns one.
It's almost like another category. You have your round boats, you got your flat boards, you got your kayaks. It's basically poor boy equipment for accessing shallow water.
Yes.
And which is great. I've never owned bigger in my personal life than a flat bottom 16-foot aluminum boat.
Right.
I don't even own a boat right now. But it's one of those things where it's cool to see that, and the shallow water anchoring systems for kayaks.
Power pole micro is one example.
Yeah, man.
Power pole works with us, and that's a really ideal thing because you can mount one on top of just about any kayak or round boat or any kind of device. There's a way you can mount it, and it keeps you anchored in shallow water. I don't know how many feet, but I mean it's great for shallow water stuff.
So it's very, very killer. And the great thing about these things, it will allow you kayaks with a quiet approach, being able to do the shallow water anchoring. By the push of a button, can allow you to get on some of those stealthier fish. I was talking to my good friend Mark Davis, Big Water Adventures TV. I met him on a Mexican bass fishing trip in '98, and he was telling me about a snook he caught. It was 58 pounds.
Holy smokes! In a kayak?
No.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
But
wow.
Anyway, and I'm thinking if I came across that thing out there, I would be so paranoid I'm going to spook it somehow.
Yeah.
You gotta, because those are really snooty fish, and
Snooty.
they're pathetic. They're snooty. I came out from snorkeling with manatees in the Crystal River, and there's this beautiful snook right down by the dock and all. I'm like, it just gave me a look like you idiot Texan. You think you're gonna throw live bait at me, but I'm in a sanctuary, And but it's really interesting that the fact that kayaks now are precision fishing vessels for that kind of stuff.
Right.
Which is really cool. Did you see anything else on the kayak thing that really struck you?
I mean, there's a couple of companies that make kayak accessories, and seeing the blow up of kayak accessories on the market today, there's so many different ways you can rig a kayak out. I think the ways are almost endless. And anything from footholds or paddling systems or lighting systems. I mean, some guys are putting light bars all around their kayak so they can attract fish like you would in a regular boat at night. Can you believe that?
That's going to be interesting when a bull shark comes up and takes a look.
I was thinking more freshwater than saltwater there, but that's.
I'm looking in the saltwater room. I'm like, that might not be a good idea.
That may not, but I mean, the way you can rig a kayak is really endless, and that's the cool thing about guys, like you and me that don't have a regular, big boat. Something like that makes the water a lot more accessible. Shallow water fishing, I mean, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And when you look at what's going on with the prices on, I mean, like Walmart has kayaks now.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, everybody's kind of getting in on the game, and I know a lot more people saying, "Hey, I'm going kayaking." I'm like, "You? I didn't know you had a boat, so I've never been able to afford one."
I ran into another company today that has a castable sonar, and I think there's a big trend towards those as well, as far as casting out, seeing on your smartphone or on your tablet, how deep it is, what the water temperature is, what the what the under structure is underneath there, and everything like that. I think that's really cool too.
Think about this. You're listening here to More Outdoors, and where else are you going to hear about a lot of these? There's no other radio program that I know of in Texas that's here. And you're going to hear about castable sonars. Basically, think of a bobber type thing that you can cast out, and that you can actually see a sonar graph on your smartphone or iPad or whatever, or your tablet. And you know, even bank fishermen. You know, we talked about that before. We're like, I think Deeper, or the one that was out there at the time, that you can actually sit on the bank and go. You always wonder why they were fished by this one log. And there's logs everywhere. Then you realize there's a big washout under it, or whatever. So it opens it up for the rest of us, which is really amazing. That's what I saw before you said. We got to take a break here in a second, but I saw a popping topwater lure that is a camera. Now I can't figure out why it has to be a popper, but it is a popper. And they had this huge. We see a lot of companies that are like one giant booth 1 year,
right?
You know what I mean? Right. But it's a camera. And on the video, they showed the thing that really was like they were proud about in the video was that there was an alligator chasing it.
That's crazy.
But who'd have thunk that you have like GoPro level cameras or you know, shooting HD cameras, I should say, on inside of a topwater lure, you know? And then we got castable sonar. You know,
well, the point I was just going to say before we go to break is that, you know, all that is making fishing more accessible to everyone, you know, and I think that is really a nice concept that we're starting to see more and more, is that fishing's really, you know, opening up for a lot of people at an affordable price.
Yeah, because there was a point where the industry was getting so the other direction, like hunting has, so the other direction. But really, some of the technology, once you've kind of a one-time investment, can actually help you have more bang for your buck while you are fishing, which is a great thing because we'd like you to get bang for your buck here on More Outdoors. We'll talk more about that here shortly. Welcome back to More Outdoors on News Talk 560 KLVI. This is the wildlife journalist Chester Moore. And by the way, if you want to check out my blog, go to thewildlifejournalist.com. That's thewildlifejournalist.com. And also The Wildlife Journalist on Facebook and at Kingdom Zoo on Instagram for our Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center and Ministry. Might as well throw out the Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center Facebook. Lots of ways to connect. Got my friend Dustin Warncke, my good friend here. Work with him at Texas Fish and Game Magazine. Also, he does a lot of things on the side. He's a motivational speaker. He has ebooks out about how to make it in the outdoors business, doing an online course on that. Can you tell us just real quick about your course before we go any further on this ICAST show?
Basically, and I appreciate you letting me talk about this, basically this is a course. It's about 5 to 6 hours long, but I mean it's really informative of how to get started in the industry if you want to be a pro staff or want to earn sponsorships or anything like that, or just be successful in the industry. And you can learn more about that course in my ebooks at dustinsprojects.com. That's dustinsprojects.com.
That's pretty cool, man. So we're here at the ICAST show in a secret studio in the hotel here, and he had his portable studio situation going on, so we're able to take advantage of that and bring up a program. We like to bring you the latest cutting edge industry stuff here at More Outdoors on News Talk 560 KLVI. And if you miss the first part of the program or have to leave us or just want to listen back, go to klvi.com, click at the podcast link at the top of the page. You'll see More Outdoors. You can listen back to all the programs here, and you can also listen to us via the iHeart Radio app. Now, we were talking about affordability, castable sonar, crossovers. I just saw something cool with Abu, which is, I mean, it's just kind of crazy. It is a 10-to-1 gear ratio reel. Yeah.
Interesting.
10-to-1 gear ratio.
Wow.
For burning it through, I think they said each retrieve is like 46 inches or something like that. Oh
my goodness.
I don't know how that works.
I don't either.
Because it's not 46 in my mind. It's like not 46 inches around.
Per turn, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how does that?
I don't know.
It's crazy, but that's really, really cool. So that's for the guys that like to burn through an area and look for fish.
Really reel it in fast.
Yeah, reel it in fast, man.
Well, I could see a situation for that for like buzz baits and fast retrieval lures and stuff like that too, right? Don't you think that would be ideal for something like that.
But I mean, you're talking that's super fast, man.
Yeah, that is.
And I've never seen that before, and I think that's really, really cool. And that was kind of the first reel that has struck me so much in the last few years. You know, we'll have some more information on that. I'll be doing a blog about it at fishgame.com.
Well, I'd like to just say that Chester had a conversation with the Florida bass today, and you can see that. You can see that video, which was hilarious. I filmed it, and you can see that video at Texas Fishing Game's Facebook page.
Yeah, go to the Texas Fishing Game Facebook page, and you'll see the deeply philosophical conversation The one you've always wanted. I know you bass fishermen know what a bass thinks. So I took it. There's a whole tank full of them suckers. So I sat there and talked to them. And you even hear the bass talk back miraculously.
Yeah, miraculously, absolutely.
And then they finally shut their mouth and wouldn't talk to me. And so you can go see that thing right there. And I was at the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission booth. And they have a 12-pounder in a tank over there.
Wow, really?
Yeah, a 12. Yeah,
I've got to go by and see that.
Yeah, there's a video of me. I wasn't talking directly to the bass, I don't think, at thewildlifejournalist.com, and we were talking about. They told me this thing had been in captivity and it gets hand fed. And so when you put your hand up there, it thinks it's going to eat. It was looking at my cell phone like it was food.
Like it was going to eat the cell phone.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, man.
That's too funny.
But you never know what you're going to see here at the ICAST show. And we love to bring you at KLVI and KLVI.com the latest and greatest in the outdoors and wildlife world. And certainly the ICAST show we've been bringing to you for 11 years here. And I'm proud of that. So we always try to recap things that we can all do and afford, but there's always some standout products. Like I'm talking about an Abu Garcia reel. I don't know if it's on the market yet, but it will be. I just got a product testing when I found out at the house here while I was gone. So I'll be testing that thing out. It's called the Rocket, I believe. The Rocket is the name of it. And that's going to be really cool. And it's red, which is kind of old Abu Garcia style color.
Yeah,
the one I saw.
My grandfather had a Abu Garcia from the 70s or 80s, and I still have it today, and it's a fantastic reel.
The red reels, baby.
It was a red reel, the old school, round style versus.
When I was a kid, that was like the Cadillac. That was one that we thought was really cool.
I've had many backlashes in that particular baitcaster, but that's okay.
I remember they had I forget which company it was. Let's talk about products that kind of failed. There was one where they tried to make a backlash-free reel.
Really?
It didn't work out too good, I don't think. I never heard of it again. And it was a casting reel, and then there was a rod at one point where the line went through the rod. It went off the spool and through the rod out the tip, and there were no eyes.
Really?
Yeah.
And that didn't make it either.
I saw it one year, maybe two, and that was all she wrote. Okay. And there was something about there's less friction, more casting, and all this kind of stuff, but it just did not work out. So I have a feeling that possibly the popping camera may not do as well.
Yeah.
I hope all these companies do great, but you see stuff out there and you're like, I'll tell you the one that I thought was like, why would anyone buy that? Was carrot sticks. Mm-hmm. They make about, I guess, keratin, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a company out of Canada. I've called on them before, and they're interesting. They're
still around and they're doing good.
Yeah, they are.
And I didn't think it was a bad product. I just thought I don't know if anglers are going to buy the name.
Right.
And I'm like, because sometimes the name and stuff's all it's in. I'm like, going to buy the name carrot sticks.
Well, two things I wanted to say here. Yeah. Go Fish Cam is a new product that's making its official launch on the market at this show, and that basically is an inline camera you tie on your line in line with your lure, and it will video the fish as it strikes. It'll video the fish as you fight it in. I mean, the technology that they put in that little video camera that's on the in line that basically just goes on your line is amazing.
Oh, that's dream come true stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the bad part. You see what you missed.
That too. Yeah, you got to review your footage after you get off the water.
Dude, there's a fish somewhere, it may still be alive, off the 55 miles off the coast of Port Aransas. In 2000, there were about 3 or 2 that I would love to have known what it was. I fought it for like 30 minutes, okay? And I'm out there, and the deckhand on the boat, just a small charter, tells me, that's probably a grouper. I said, well, I don't care what it is, I'm gonna get it up. And he goes, well, let me help you. I'm gonna grab your line. I'm gonna help pop it. I said, don't touch the line. There's too much tension on it right now. You can't do it. So he grabs it, and I get it close to the boat. Can't see it yet. It pops the line. And I've always wondered what that was. That camera, I don't know if it does a feed to a device or whatever.
I think it has a chip inside of it that actually takes the video and stuff too, but I think it does feed to the device.
Because it would get expensive in saltwater pretty quick if you lose the cameras, we could feed to a device. But how cool is that? And with AquaView's here.
Yeah.
And I had the first AquaView, or one of the first. I probably still have it in my house somewhere.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and using an old monitor, but those things have changed the face of fishing up north a lot, ice fishing and stuff like that, but a lot of guys in saltwater using them, and there's a lot of interfaces between your phone, your electronics, that
Yes.
kind of stuff. And we were talking to the guys over at Lawrence today.
Lawrence, I was just going to bring that up, yep.
Yeah, and we're talking about the sonar and the weather thing. And it wasn't just sonar, got into the radar. So being able to go out. And he talked about a guy that went out on a trip, and there's this crazy thunderstorm system coming at them, right?
Right.
And they were able to actually, because they were able to watch the trajectory and everything, they were able to keep their whole day of fishing, hide in a cove somewhere, and dodge the whole storm.
Right.
Whereas if you have to eyeball it,
you don't know.
You don't know, man. So I thought that was really amazing.
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And it just makes sense that we use electronics and that kind of stuff. I always write about this when I talk about equipment. I don't use technology. Actually, I'm working on this for an article in December.
Sounds deep.
I don't actually take and consider something a crutch when it comes to technology. I use it to help me do what I do better.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. That you actually don't just rely on it.
Right, and depend on, if I don't have this, I can't do that. We still believe in fishing in the old school way, but it's one of those things that,
No, it's a great thought.
Yeah.
To be able to use the technology to benefit you and help take you to the absolute next level.
Right.
And that's really what it's about, man. This ICAST show is about us taking things up to the next level and being able to sort of rock it out and do awesome stuff, So we're pumped about being at the ICAST show. And if you want to catch more of this program, you missed it, or want to share it with somebody, klvi.com, click on the podcast link at the top of the page, and you can listen back, not to just this show, back a long ways on More Outdoors and the archives of our show. 19 years and growing strong here on News Talk 560 KLVI with the wildlife journalist, Chester Moore. We'll talk more in just a minute. Welcome back to More Outdoors with the wildlife journalist Chester Moore, here with my good friend Dustin Warncke. He is a man of many. He's like a renaissance man of the great outdoors, man. And he is a podcaster in his own right. He works in the ad department of Texas Fish and Game, and he does everything from selling exotic wildlife to a motivational speaker. But we've been talking about the ICAST show, which is the great fishing trade show. It takes place annually. It's been in Orlando for quite a while. And we've been at the show, really enjoying it this year. And I think this is probably my best ICAST recap I've ever had. If I remember correctly, you called in last year or year before last, and we discussed a little bit post ICAST. But this is the first time we've been on the air fully discussing the whole thing together.
That's kind of cool, isn't it?
It's been a lot of fun, man. It's usually me ranting and raving about the show by myself, but we covered everything tonight from kayak, including inflatable kayaks, crossover, saltwater to freshwater lures, a lot of very practical things for the show, and even technology. In the last segment, we talked about a castable sonar.
Yes.
Did you ever think there would be a day that you'll be seeing castable sonar?
No, and that's the nice thing about it. It's, as I said earlier in the show, it's making the outdoors more accessible to more people, whether you be a bank fisherman, a kayak fisherman, a big boat fisherman. The electronics that are available today are just amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And, products like the iPilot.
Yes.
And different things like that. You got stuff that will route you on a route that you like and, hold you over a particular GPS waypoint.
The spot log is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's insanity.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
It's insanity out there.
Yeah.
But, one of the things I always look at these shows is I used to call myself a line snob. I like to look at the different kind of fishing lines. I think that's probably, in a fisherman's arsenal, the most overlooked and underappreciated tool that he has is the line. And when I went to Pure Fishing today, they have like most of the brands of line in the industry.
Right.
They have Stren, they've got the Spider Wire, they have the Berkeley Fireline, the Trilene, all that stuff, and some fluorocarbon that came out this year. I've noticed fluorocarbon's kind of coming down in price, and fluorocarbon has the same refractive properties of light as water. So,
okay.
It's invisible in the water, essentially.
I'm going to say I knew that already, but I didn't.
It's very scientific, yes. It's very scientific. It has the refractive properties of water, yeah. And so that's why fluorocarbon's really good, because if you have fish which are very sensitive to color and stuff like that, you add a fluorocarbon leader or fish straight fluoro. For example, when I go fish flounder in really clear water, I love using braid because flounder have that bony mouth and then lack of stretch in braid. They just set the hook real good. I have to go to a fluoro leader, or fish straight fluoro, because the flounder can see the line and it makes a difference in the bite. And we were joking earlier, by the way, about Carpe Diem.
Yes, we were.
And the carp, because he's a carp specialist over here.
I don't know about a specialist, but I guess so.
He's actually caught one on a rod and reel. I never have. I've tried, and I caught turtles.
And let me just say, a lot of people say pound for pound in freshwater now, striper's the kingpin. I disagree. I think a carp would make a run for his money for sure. They are the hardest fighting fish.
I'm going to honor your favorite fish here.
I don't know about favorite fish. I didn't say that now.
In a different way. So I saw this poster, and it had a big carp on it, right? And I'm like, that's what I said, Carpe Diem, the story, and all this stuff. And, Pure Fishing has a fishing research facility. And they have fish and things in it where they literally test lures and lines and that kind of stuff.
Really?
Yeah. It was located in Spirit Lake, Iowa for years. I think I might have moved to their headquarters in South Carolina now. But I was told by John Prochnow, who does a lot of the product testing. I saw John today. I was told by John that when they test lures on these freshwater fish, that by far, not even a contest, the smartest fish that figures things out quickly is the carp.
Really?
Yeah, a carp.
I have heard that before, as carp being one of the smarter fish, but a lot of people think just because they're not edible, I mean, they're no good. But look at some other species that aren't tarpon and bonefish and other ones that are not edible, but that are very smart. And a carp can sense, in an angler's perspective, they can sense what they pick up in their mouths and taste it and everything like that and see if it is good. I mean, they literally have the discernment, I guess is the right word.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
They're spiritual here.
They're not just a trash fish. I'm not being spiritual. Stop that.
I'm messing with you. But it's true. And you know what they said number 2 was? A crappie.
A crappie. Now, I believe that for sure.
Well, see, here's the thing, and I think we might have mentioned this before when we spoke. People look at hogs and think hogs are stupid because they'll set a feeder out in an area that hasn't been hunted much, and a bunch of younger pigs come up and they shoot them real easy.
Right.
But once a hog matures, forget about it, right? Yep. Whole different animal. Well, crappie are so abundant in these lakes. There's just so many numbers of crappie. They seem like they're dumb. But the big mature crappie are super smart and super hard to catch. I think if we knew the size of some of the crappie on these brush piles that won't touch the lure, our minds would be blown.
Sure. They're hogs, man. They're slabs. Big ones. Yeah, for sure.
I've said for a long time that everything is a trash fish but a flounder and a crappie. Maybe I'll throw a carp in there now because they're so smart. But that the crappie doesn't get the attention it needs for its intelligence. And I was looking at Berkeley. They have a line for crappie now. And, you can get specific, and what's neat about that is crappie need abrasion resistance because they're in brush a lot, right?
Right.
So if you're fishing straight grass, you wouldn't quite need as much, or open water, but around that. So we're able to go out, and if you're fishing and you're able to look at some of these new products and things we're going to be reviewing at fishgame.com and other places, you can find specific lures, lines, rods, reels for as narrow an area of fishing that you want to do.
It's niched, I guess. Is the right
that's probably the right word.
Niched,
Niche.
Yeah, so
like incredibly niched, actually.
It's in its own domain. I mean, depending on what you're going after. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people I wanted to say this all week before actually this past weekend. I'm fishing with my son Jackson. We're in freshwater under the I-35 bridge in Brownfields, Texas, my hometown. And, there were guys out there for catfish. There were guys out there for bass. There were guys out there that were wade fishing and doing all kinds of things from the bank. I was just getting on top of a bridge column, pulling in bluegill after bluegill. And we're talking like 2-inch bluegill.
Yeah, man.
With a little bitty cricket hook.
Yep.
I mean, that is skill right there. That's the kind of finesse like you talk about sometimes. But a lot of people turn their nose up at that. But what's a crappie? A crappie's a panfish.
Exactly.
I mean, so it's just about getting a thing on night crawlers and an old rod and reel. And here's the other thing I was going to bring up. My grandfather, Jackson's great-grandfather, my son's great-grandfather, had a Kmart special spinning reel. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
And old school spinning reel. I mean, I've got it on an ugly stick rod and a real ultralight rig. And then I had another, which I will not mention the brand name, kids fishing pole rod and reel that broke on me. The 35-year-old rod and reel took it like a champ and fished the rest of the weekend. So I brought 2 rods. One of them failed on me, and it was almost new.
It's funny. It reminds me of my Uncle Jackie. You know, he's passed away. He was a Marine, and he was very. When you do Jackie, you have to do the Jackie voice. He had like this voice you had to do.
I can't wait.
It's kind of mean like voice, you know. And he got mad at someone at an archery shop one time because they didn't like his bow. You know, he got in a pawn shop or whatever, right? And he goes, if they, I can't say the word. He said, if they mess with me. I'll go back and get my wing bow out of mothballs. And he wanted to start hunting with his wing, which was like one of the first compounds. It was like coming out like 68 or something, and when he had, and he was actually thinking about hunting with his wing. And so anyway, no, I'm sorry, my dad had the wing. It was an Allen, even older than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, it's sometimes the older stuff works. And I was talking with Joe Doggett, our Texas Fishing Game columnist, and he was out fishing with bingos in the surf. And bingo is one of the first real known saltwater lures. And like I tell people, the old stuff still works, but the great thing is there's a lot of modern technology that's allowing us to do some amazing things in fishing. And it's a lot of fun to talk about it, right?
It is, absolutely. I love this stuff. I love the more I have the opportunity to share it with other people. I mean, that's what I try to do on the Best of the Outdoors podcast, which you can find at fishgame.com under the podcast tab. I really try to bring home, you know, the hope and the inspiration and the Texas outdoor lifestyle is what I try to say, you know. And so I would obviously love for you guys to listen to that show as well as Chester's, but it's really just it's really been great to be with you on this. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thanks, man. You know, I love you, man. You're a brother in Christ. You're a brother in the outdoors, and we both have the ethic that everyone should have an access point to the great outdoors.
Yes.
It shouldn't just be the privileged or the influential or connected. It should be everyone out there. And that's kind of the ethic that I've had my entire career, and great mentors like Ed Holder even reinforced in me over the years. So have had a ball, had a great time with the ICAST show. I go to the SHOT Show every year, and I get to do a cool report, but I really don't like going to the SHOT Show. It's a lot more of a grind.
Right.
It's a tougher show to do for scale and size. ICAST is big, but it's small enough you can see stuff.
Right.
And look at everything. And we really get to do a great look and overview of the program. And I love coming here on More Outdoors and being able to say, hey, you know, this is at the ICAST show.
Right.
This is at the ICAST show.
Well, and plus people like Roland Martin and guys like that, Bill Dance. I mean, they're hanging out. You know?
Yeah, it freaks me out still. I walk up and there's like we were out. I was praying for a lady outside the first morning, and I feel someone pat me on the back, and it's my buddy Mike Iaconelli.
Oh.
Now, if you told me that one of my top, you know, that several of my top bass fishing heroes would be friends of mine, I'd be like blown away, right?
Sure.
But that's the cool thing in this industry. The fishing industry in particular is very friendly.
Yes.
And there's a lot of great people who work hard and will just come hang out with you and talk fishing, you know. So we've had a great time. The ICAST show was great. You go to fishgame.com and see the various blogs and videos and the Texas Fishing Game Facebook for the lives that I did, including my riveting interview with the Florida bass. I'm the first man to break the species barrier on interviews.
I haven't laughed so hard in my life, man.
Look, the only animals ever been interviewed are Coco the gorilla, who just passed away, unfortunately, and those bass in that tank.
That's it.
That's it, man. And so, like I said, I started off with the fish. So anyway, I've had a great time, and I thank everyone for listening to More Outdoors. 19 years and strong, going here on Newstalk 560 KLVI, having a blast. And don't forget, you can listen to the show weekly on AM 560 KLVI, KLVI.com, also the iHeartMedia app, and click on KLVI.com at the podcast link on top and listen back to More Outdoors. And we love it, and we hope you're inspired. We hope you enjoy the tackle stuff, and God bless you guys, and have an amazing, inspiring outdoors weekend.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chester Moore from More Outdoors, KLVI AM 560 on Beaumont area. Fantastic guy. I just love this guy to death. He's got a heart for conservation, got a heart for preserving the sport and this heritage of fishing and hunting and the outdoor lifestyle for our next generation. And just love this guy. So anyway, I'm excited every time I get to sit down in front of a microphone with Chester, because it's always a fun, spirited discussion. And I hope you guys really enjoyed the show. So anyway, stay tuned to fishgame.com this week. We've got some Facebook Lives that are already posted. Chester did today when I'm releasing this show. And we also have a wide variety of other stuff that's going to be coming on fishgame.com. wide variety of blog posts and things that we found interesting at ICAST this year. And the ICAST fishing show is basically one of the largest fishing shows in the world. It's just a fantastic show, as Chester said in the podcast, and it's just an honor to be able to be here and hang out with so many guys that are in this industry, and just have a lot of fun doing that. So thank you guys so much again for watching, reading, and listening. Have an awesome day in the outdoors. We'll see you on the next show.